Okay, so it's taken me a couple of weeks to put together this vlog, and it's an overview really of where the UK and the riots and the civil war and the dissension that's actually happening, and everybody getting wound up back in London and back in the UK. I'm not going into religion, I'm not going into money, and I'm not going into politics, but this is a swifter overview of what's actually happening in the United Kingdom. Many years ago, the UK joined the common market. That common market transitioned into the European community, the EU as they call it. And over that time, you had to join the EU, you had to go to the euro rather than keeping your own currency. You had to give up your sovereignty and go into the EU. But the EU is made up of 28 countries, and those 28 countries are all fighting for their own rights. So over that period of time, it became worse and worse and worse. Contrary to what the people in The Hague, and contrary to what people turn around and say in Luxembourg, the EU is a self-deprecating group of countries that are out for themselves, not as a group. And you have to remember that if you took away the EU, you would take away nearly 1 million jobs in government. And 1 million jobs means there's 1 million wages, and 1 million benefits, and 1 million pensions, and 1 million of all these hangers-on that are drawing from the pot. So 5 years ago, the UK voted to come out of Brexit, out of EU, and it was called Brexit. In that time, immigration was one of the key factors. Now, come forward to today, this is a brief overview, guys. Come forward to today, immigration is still a major issue in the United Kingdom. A major issue. There are groups on the right that want to turn around and let as many immigrants in and asylum seekers into the UK. But the problem comes is, this is the United Kingdom, okay? It has a finite resource of wealth and reserve and jobs. And when you let in thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of immigrants a month, you've got to house them, you've got to put them somewhere, you've got to pay them, you've got to give them benefits, you've got to give them free health. Okay? That's what you've got to give them. That's what the EU says you have to do. And there's this thing about human rights. Well, if there are human rights, they should stay in the country they've come from. But the country they're coming from has no human rights. They are countries that threaten death, violence, atrocities. And you can look this up. You don't need to take my word for it. You can look this up. There is a woman called Bachmann who left the UK to go and live in Syria because her beliefs when she was 16 was ISIS and the terrorist organisations in Syria, Iran and Iraq. Today she lives in a concentration camp. She's had 3 husbands, 5 children, all of them have died, and she's trying to get back her British citizenship. So she's 26. 10 years ago she denounced the UK and she went to live as a terrorist. Now she wants to renounce that and come back in. So the UK are looking at it as she's not going to get back in, and they're saying, well, you gave up your right, you became a terrorist, and we don't condone terrorism. So everybody in the UK is up in arms at the moment. So there was a vote for Labour Party, Keir Starmer, and Keir Starmer was voted in a month ago. Now Keir Starmer had this portfolio, and you can look at this video. On the 30th of April he turned around and he said that he wouldn't. He met old people in London, and they were freezing, and they were starving, and they couldn't live, and it was terrible. And he was sitting there giving this speech. In my opinion, I don't trust anybody that sits there and turns around and says they're not going to do something as a politician. So.
Monsieur, Hawaiian pizza.
No, thank you very much. I'm getting my Hawaiian pizza. Queer. Pizza. So, I don't trust somebody that's turning around and saying they're not going to do something. Anyway, 2 weeks ago, Keir Starmer's Labour Party took away the heating allowance for the old people. Exactly what he said he wouldn't do. A liar. And this is why people are up in arms. So people are rioting about losing their winter fuel allowance for people over the age of 60. That's one set of riots. The other set of riots are you've got this misled group of people, and I can turn around quite comfortably say it because I don't vote either way, but I have an opinion. You have this misled group of people turn around and say that let all the immigrants in, and you can watch it online. It's online, and people, they go up and they turn around and say let all the immigrants in, and then when you turn around and say, well, where are you going to house them? Where are they going to live? How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to do the medication? But the people that are protesting are not interested in that. They're not interested in that. They're interested in walking around with their placards and turn around and saying about let the refugees in. But when you turn around and ask these people that are protesting, could one of the immigrants come and live in your house? You know what the reply is? Oh, I rent my property. Oh, I only have one bedroom. Oh, I don't have any space. Another set of lies, because these people are from the ages of 17 up to 60. Now the 16-year-olds might be at school, but that's okay, and you've got an opinion, great, I understand that, but that is actually upsetting a lot of other people when immigrants are coming in. And at the moment there are 64,000 people, 64,000, get that number in your head, a month coming into the UK. 64,000 a month. That 64,000 don't have any jobs, don't have any work, don't have anywhere to live, don't have any food, don't have any money, don't have any medical care, don't have any transportation, and they're escaping. Believably so. They could be connected to a terrorist organisation. Now, in Germany, this is going back to the EU. Germany, they had under Merkel, they had a no borders policy. Since the Socialist Party have been voted in a year and a half ago, they put all the borders back up. And now they're pulling down mosques in Germany because there's affiliation to terrorist political activism and hate in Germany. Now that's not clever, is it really? That's not what you want to hear. And in Sweden, one of the calmest, peaceful, most tranquil countries you could ever visit, their gun crime and their bomb explosions have increased over 100%. And when they've actually investigated, it's not Swedish people, it's not the local community, this is the transient immigration people that are actually coming into the country. And it's not all of them, don't get me wrong, it's only a minority, but the minority upset the majority, and the majority are now coming back and saying enough is enough. In Holland, they want to turn around and they want to deport all immigrants. Yeah, you heard it. They want to deport all immigrants, and this is part of the EU. So what happened 20, 30 years ago about immigration, border control, let down the borders, let them in. You let in all the crooks, the scammers, the cheats, the liars, the terrorists, the sex offenders, the child abusers, the robbers, all of them. And when they get into the system, they undermine your cultural sovereignty. They undermine. Now, what it needs in the UK, in my opinion, it needs a strong Prime Minister. Not a weasel, not a rat, not an incompetent toad. Starmer sits in that. Before, Sunak, was the Prime Minister for the Conservative Party. And he was in power, but he wasn't voted in by the people. He was put in office as a puppet for the Conservative Party because the people voted in Boris Johnson. And Boris Johnson used to lie and tell things and do all this. Great. But a lot of people liked Boris. Then they moved in Liz Truss in the UK. She lasted 49 days and the Conservative Party sacked her. Then they moved in Sunak. The people did not vote Sunak into power. He got the job as Prime Minister under default. Is that right? I don't think it is right. It should have been a general election. However, then you end up, who is eligible in the United Kingdom to turn around and lead the country through this turmoil? Well, nobody trusts the politicians. Nobody trusts the government. And there are these laws in place where solicitors and attorneys protect the rights of people that are not British. They might come from a different country, a different world. If you come from a different planet and you land in London and you say you're an asylum seeker, I don't have a passport and I'm worried about my life, you will get a house, benefit, money, food, education, health. But as I said earlier, that's a finite line. Where is the money coming from to turn around and pay for it? It's coming from tax. Now, the rich people in the UK don't want to have their tax put up, which means they don't want to turn around and help with immigration. They don't want to help with the running of the country. They just want to take the money out of their company and give it to their venture capitalists or their rich gurus wherever they are in the world. The people that are paying the taxes are the working class. And I have to say, working. These are the people that go out every day and work. This is not the benefit scammers that go down the office for the government and turn around and say, I've got 10 children, I need a house to live in. These are British as well. These are English. These are whites. These are not Asians. These are not Caucasians. These are not blacks. These are people that are screwing over the system. And you can watch it on television. There's programs on that called benefit fraud. And people turn around and go, I've got 10 children, I need a bigger house, and the government will give them 40,000 minimum pounds. So 40,000, if you're watching this in the Philippines, that's 5 million pesos a year to live on. Yeah, free. All you've got to turn around, and your wife's got to turn around and do, or your girlfriend's got to do, is just turn around and start breeding loads of children. And the government will give you free money. But that money comes from people that are hard-working, taxing. And the taxing is coming from the government. We pay tax in the UK. It's pay tax on council tax, fuel tax, VAT. So if you are on benefit and you earn above 40,000, you don't pay tax. But if you go out to work and you order work and you earn more than 40,000, you pay 40% tax. So you pay 10 grand a year out of your 40,000 in tax. That goes to the government, and the government do what? They do around do the policing. They give some of it to the hospitals. Most of it goes to benefit. Most of it goes to supporting immigration. And this is one of the reasons why in the UK so many people are rioting. You've got people rioting for the good of the world. They want to bring in all these immigrants. You've got the people turning around and trying to protect their pensions. They're trying to protect their livelihood. They're trying to protect what they're working for. And people are turning around and saying, no. And you've got government officials like Starmer, who's ring-fencing his pension and his savings with laws which means he doesn't pay any tax when he retires. So for me, the government needs a big overhaul. It needs to put somebody in power that is going to turn around and say to government, you're a bunch of charlatans, liars, cheats, you've done nothing since Margaret Thatcher. You've just come up with wishy-washy ways of putting plasters and band-aids onto things. And one of the reasons I don't live in the UK is I control my money, not the government. It's my life. I live my life. I have my opinions. I have my views. They might not sit with everybody, but if I was to give you my views on YouTube, I'd be struck off. I would be demonetised. I would be ostracised. So we all have an opinion. We're all trying to live. But in the UK, at the moment, you've got the left turn around and say they want to do this, you've got the right want to do this, you've got the people in the middle protesting, you've got government and police. And why a lot of protests get visual is because there's a very small police presence. There was a protest 2 weeks ago and the government put 6,000 police officers into the policing of the protesters, and nothing happened. It's when protesting gets out of hand because the people that are protesting are thugs, hooligans, activists, and that doesn't mean, you know, you might be there peaceful. I've watched over the last few years people throw paint on pictures and artwork. I've watched people turn around and say, you got to call me they, them, their. The world is going mad, and you need to understand this. But in the UK, it will sort itself out eventually, but it's been going on for 5 years. And I look at it that the EU created something that they couldn't manage and they couldn't deal with, and countries now are turning around and saying, this is what we're doing. And what they should, my personal opinion, they should turn around and get rid of all of the officials in the EU, shut them all down and let them go and get jobs, because then those people will fight for their benefit against the illegal immigrants, or the immigrants, or the asylum seekers, or the terrorists, or the people that come through the back door. Because there's over 1 million people employed in European government. In the UK, it's about 21,000. But if you add in the tax offices and the policing offices, it's about 300,000. All their salaries come out of the tax. And you cannot continue to charge people for your incompetent government. But anyway, it will get better, but I don't think in my lifetime. I think there's too many people drawing out of the bank account, and there isn't enough money to cover it. And the working class are better off being on the benefit than going out to work. Imagine that happening. Every worker in the UK resigns, it goes down the benefit office and turns around and says, I need to get paid for it. What will the government do then? What will Mr. Keir Starmer, what will Mr. Sunak do? What would Mr. Brown do? What would Blair do? What would Liz Truss do? What would Boris Johnson do? What would all of these inepts? You've also got a guy called Nigel Farage who keeps going on and on and on. Nigel Farage came out of Brexit with Boris Johnson, and the first thing he did was get out of power, become a social media activist. He's got some great points, but he hasn't got the balls to turn around and make it happen. Anyway, I'm here, Samuel. I'm going to enjoy my food. Look, there we go. There is my pizza. Yeah. One last thing. Are you a slave to the government, or are you a puppet to the system, or are you an independent thinker with a viewpoint? Every time. You'll upset a lot of people, but at least you've had your chance. Take care. Like, share, subscribe, guys. I'm here in summer.